All right, welcome back. We have another episode of Bootstrapping to Billions. This is an exited limited series where we're talking to exited founders, folks, members of the less than 7% of us who have gone on to experience a successful exit. Today we have with us Sam Henning. Thank you for joining us. Sam, welcome to the pod.
Hi, Chris. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So Sam, this is going to be a good one. This is a boots on ground episode for sure. It's going to span a number of years, close to a decade now. The original venture kicked things off in 2017. We're talking about 2 deals, 2 exits. It was packaged, right? All under the UnionWorks brand as a whole, which has continuity to today too. So we're going to touch in on some of the things that you're working on. But just to read in the audience early and often, it's 2017. You're spinning out with UnionWorks. You're building a couple of projects, got Order Tagger and Customer Tagger. We're getting them to traction. In 2021, we exit them for 7 figures. Thereafter, we continue the process and we repeat, we build, we incubate, we exit. And everything in between is a lot of live lessons learned. And I'm hoping that in today's episode, we can share with our audience, hopefully a handful of them that can help them repeat what you've done and are doing and continue will do for a long period of time. Welcome to the pod.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great introduction. Hopefully I can do it justice. But as I say, like we're UnionWorks. We've been building Shopify apps since about 2016. I think Steve, one of the co-founders, he's been building since 2012. Between us, we're very familiar with the platform and kind of like, if I look back at 2017 to now, I probably wouldn't have predicted how it's turned out. Like there's been a lot of turns. It's not quite how we set out. We've had a COVID emergency crisis, which changed the face of our industry quite dramatically. Yeah, I guess there's a lot to cover.
A lot of ebbs and flows. Let's start with the model itself, because I think that this is interesting. I think that our audience listening may find it interesting as well. There's a lot of folks out there that are investopreneurs, a lot of exit one folks who are trying to exit the day job, make the business the job. And then there's a lot of folks that are in something already successful, profitable, and they're thinking about more. Maybe they bolt on, maybe. And all of these things at the end of the day also kind of come back to this holdco mentality to a certain extent, right? So we're trying to make good, timely decisions, invest in assets, be able to maintain and manage those assets and then get them to a liquidity event and exit, which is quite literally what you guys are doing and have done. All right, we want to take a quick break from today's pod to shout out our sponsor, Go HighLevel. I had the opportunity of hanging out with the founders a couple of weeks ago. They're really cool guys, but they're building an even cooler platform. Platforms and tools may help you do the work, but HighLevel helps you build the business. HighLevel is an AI-powered business operating system that serves as the foundation your business can run on. This is where your customers' conversations, workflows, and decisions all come together, and where AI actively moves things forward. It follows up automatically, prioritizes leads, books appointments, updates pipelines, and keeps everything in motion so you don't have to. You're not bouncing between systems or manually stitching together processes. You're building on a single operating layer, something that learns your business over time and helps you run it better. This isn't just a place to get work done. It's where you build a better business. If you're ready to build something smarter, start your 30-day free trial through the link in the description. Check out gohighlevel.com, link in the description, 30-day free trial. Now back to today's pod. So I kind of wanted to back into the core model itself of UnionWorks, right? So how you guys are approaching building and incubating and then exiting these applications, and then the mental model in which you're applying to it. So can you take us through the model itself today?
Yeah. So as a team, we know what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and we kind of always set out to build interesting ideas. Like we got together because we had 3 different skill sets which worked really nicely together. And we felt that we could build out some really interesting apps for Shopify. So we've only ever built on Shopify. We don't work with any other platforms. We kind of like, no, this is our vertical. This is what we're going to focus on. So that was our first decision. The second one was that we liked working as a 3 We felt like we had a good level of control. We could keep a close eye on output and input as to what we're doing. So we kind of said, right, well, we'll remain small. There's no plan to get cash. There's no plan for investment, and there's no plan to like bums on seats. Like we were like, we're just going to remain a small team. And with that, unfortunately, comes with some downsides. So we can't, there's only so far we can spread ourselves. And we can only give one thing our full attention at any one time. So when we started UnionWorks, we decided we are going to do the things we enjoy and what we're good at. And when it gets to a point where, hopefully, anyway, when we were first starting, get to a point where an app gets too big for us. So it's at a stage where it needs multiple support members. It needs like proper marketing. Like we no longer can just rely on just product development. Like it needs business development teams. It needs a lot of people. That's the point we decide reluctantly we will sell, and then we'll switch our attention to something else. So that was the model in 2017. Hasn't really changed. Like in an ideal world, we'd love it to be the same. The world has changed, so we've had to make some tweaks, but that's kind of the premise and the plan for UnionWorks when we first started.
So forced constraints constrained the model in terms of designing the business itself. So you wanted to achieve something that the three of you can leverage the strengths and enjoyment factor, and without the pressure of outside capital and scale and all of the things that come with a venture-backed route,
Yeah,
build something meaningful, sustainable, durable, profitable, bootstrapped, it sounds like.
yeah,
And then the moment in time where that maybe shifts because the project itself grows and gets to this next level, a milestone, that becomes the trigger for the exit. And that
yeah,
became kind of the mental model to build within. So you force function this framework, which is super interesting. I'm thinking about it and I'm like, okay, so from a specialization perspective, there's a couple of things that you figured out how to do very, very well. One would be identifying opportunities in the market, right? Because everything starts somewhere. Place to start is there. You're actively building, not buying. So you're building these projects. You're doing so in an ecosystem. So I'm curious if there's some level of insight that you gather and you gain in terms of competitive advantage there. How do you find the projects to build?
it's a good question. I think so. When we first started out, so my background was marketing agency. I left that agency to start up a Shopify development agency. It was a time where everyone was moving to Shopify. It was an amazing platform where you could set up an online store so quickly, and it just became really easy to use. I'm not a developer, but even I knew how to set people up. I got a good handle on how to move people over. Then I discovered the App Store, and I kind of through there, like without going into too much detail, met Steve. I knew Alex from a previous agency. He was the CTO there, so he was a very experienced developer, but perhaps not had much exposure to Shopify. And so from there, I did a lot of client projects with migrating people from other platforms into Shopify. You learn like what the nuances of their business and perhaps what they do compared to what you can do. And then that's kind of where the App Store plugs all of those gaps. So Shopify would say they build 80% of functionality and they leave 20% for developers, which is probably still true today, although the rate of development and the amount of apps going on the App Store make it considerably harder. But back then, the App Store was a lot smaller, so there was plenty of gaps. Going into, so we're building and like migrating a lot of stores, you get a lot of ideas, and they kind of, even if someone builds them, it doesn't necessarily mean that's it. You kind of, there's different iterations of those ideas, and you can do them better as well. So it was a very competitive but open marketplace on the App Store. From that, like the 2016 to 2018, we had a lot of ideas because we were doing a lot of project work. When we first started, because we had no money to fund our app development, we had to take on projects. So we found a niche. We were like very experienced between the three of us in like doing API integrations, warehouse integrations. So you've got all of these Shopify brands moving to Shopify, but they don't have a connector to their warehouse or their fulfillment partners or whatever. So there was loads of work to be like build these custom apps, which would be a project fee. And we would do them gradually throughout those couple of years until we got to a tipping point where we'd eventually got enough app revenue to stop taking on projects. So those first 2 years were really critical actually, because all of our ideas were born in those 2 years. And I think the only frustration for us was we couldn't just go out there and build, because we still needed to do project work to kind of keep things
You were
going.
servicing. So
Yeah,
if I'm listening to this appropriately, you're starting off, you've got a team of folks, everyone has their own specializations, right? Two technical folks, and then you got yourself in terms of more of the business savvy sales front.
yeah.
And we're going to choose Shopify as the place to live. Choice was being made. You're now bootstrapping. So money's a real thing. We got to make it. You're servicing clients, and that's essentially how you bring money in the door at first. The client service work is integrations with warehousing and customer management. And if I'm connecting the dots, the two projects that we want to emphasize in terms of exit, order tagger and customer tagger, it feels like are directly correlated to that service work. Was the service work the function of using the apps that you built, or were the apps a byproduct of doing the work for clients?
Not really. I mean, I think you're right. What we found was, on a very simple level, we were good at pushing and pulling information, pulling it into Shopify and interpreting it or pushing it out to somewhere else. So anything which involved behind the scenes flow of data, we kind of felt we know what we're doing. We can handle large volumes. The level, or like the interface, didn't have to be that complicated. So like where we kind of strengths are, I would say we would all admit, especially back then, our weaknesses were in design. So if we were doing something which involved too much of a data, like a dashboard or an interface, or it pushed code onto the front end, and therefore we have some styling, or we have something which you can actually see as a product, would be a lot harder for us to like have confidence in and build. So I guess that's all of that service work kind of taught us, right? This is what we're good at. We know what we're doing. We know Shopify's APIs inside out. We know the way the webhooks work. We know all of the kind of quirks of Shopify and the differences between what they might do and what would be expected. So yeah, that's kind of like, we knew we were good at that sort of thing. So order tagger and customer tagger, where those ideas came from specifically was a little bit earlier in time, and it was actually really simple. So they started out as quite simple products. So I used to have a client who was a diet delivery brand. So he would send you a big box with all of your meals for the week, calorie controlled. And at the time, there was no easy way to just group customers or group orders based on the dietary requirements. So I just want to be like, that's a gluten-free order, that's vegan, that's raw, or whatever it was at the time. So Order Tagger was the first one that was built, and it would just tag the order with something based on the product was ordered. So that was
So
just
you built it for a client.
kind of, yeah. It was. I don't think they even used it. I think the idea came of it, but it wasn't necessarily for them. It was just a concept of organizing an order or grouping a customer based on the order data or based on the product they bought. That was kind of where it came from. But I think the confidence to do it came from the fact that we knew a lot about pushing and pulling of information, especially if you're working on that basis. If you get one store who's getting thousands of orders every week, that's a huge amount of data to process. So it's very much the sort of thing we'd be like, okay, we know what we're doing here. We can handle large stores or large scale volumes of data, all because of the work we've been doing for the last couple of years. It's kind of given us the confidence in doing that.
So it sounds like a couple of things are happening. It sounds like you're experiencing these problems in market, working with clients, doing the thing, and then you're leaning into core competencies to find the confidence in building the solution. And then the solutions exist, and we have these applications, and the next problem becomes distribution. How are we taking them from something that exists and then something that people are actually paying for and using and building a brand with that we could eventually one day exit? How did you bridge that gap? So what did that look like to get to, because you guys had a few thousand customers, right?
Yeah, I mean, that took us a long time to kind of realize. So even to this day, I'd say our um, execution and output of like actual marketing is not great. We don't do a lot of it. So one of the, like, as we kind of, those pillars of the reasons we started Union Works is we like to do the things we're good at and the things we can control. So we can control a really good product. We can provide a really good support experience, and we can action feedback quite quickly because the three of us are looking at a support desk. We're reading what people are saying when we're building. So with those two apps, kind of the way it went was that we would just listen to in merchants on an individual level and
Mhm.
build what it was they needed. And it just so happened that another person would come along and go, oh, I need that as well. And then I think what we probably underestimate is a lot of Shopify merchants talk to each other. So there's a lot of recommendations there. But like distribution wise, it's hard for me to answer it because I don't think we did anything in particular, which would be like whoosh and like the flood.
I mean, it sounds like you did. It sounds like you chose the right platform. So first and foremost, you got to be in the right vehicle to get to the right place. You
Yeah.
chose Shopify. You leaned into the App Store early. It was still relatively early before it's very crowded today. You found a solution that solved a very specific problem, and then you listened to customers in terms of feedback diligently and focused there in terms of building a really great product and making it even better. And then the feedback loops, being in the right vehicle on that engine itself kind of propelled things forward and just started to compound this flywheel, which does work very successfully in these marketplace type models.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's probably right. I think it's hard for us because we see things on a day-to-day basis. I guess if you like to step back and over doing that over a period of 2 or 3 years, you suddenly like, oh, okay, yeah, you can see
Can't
how
break
it
it down
compounded.
simple, but it doesn't feel
Yeah,
like
like
that.
it's really and like the thing with SaaS as well, I kind of found is so my like before that I was, as I say, I was selling projects and I'd always thought that was what I was good at. And like there's a nice bit of gratification. You get a sale, you can send an invoice, bang, you've done the thing you wanted to do. Whereas with like SaaS is you spend ages talking, planning, and then delivering a feature. And it's not like everyone goes, yeah, install. It's like look at that in a year's time and see what the adoption's been like. So there was definitely there's a real shift in mentality, which is we've kind of learned over years, and we've got a lot more wise to it, and we kind of trust we're doing the right thing because we're listening to maybe one merchant, but they've got a really valid use case. Let's just do it, build it, make sure it's done properly, and then trust that the fact that in a couple of years we'll look back and go, oh, look at the adoption of that feature. Look at the new merchants who have come on because we've had that feature. But it's definitely like a patient waiting game. There's
Yeah,
no
slow grow of the crop. It's like it's a true farmer mentality to a certain extent.
yeah.
You're sowing the seeds and then you're tending to it with good customer care, and hopefully over a long period of time, you get to reap what you sow. In your situation, you communicated earlier that you had a framework in place. It was a force limiter constraint of when an exit would make sense.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys knew from the very start? Or is that something that once these projects became of scale themselves, you realized, right? So was it something intentional from the beginning or something, oh man, now we're in this. This is maybe not for us.
No, we knew it from the beginning. It was more of a hope at the beginning. It's like like we'd set out, we're like, well, that'd be a
A
nice
good
problem to
thesis.
have. Let's
Yeah.
get there first and then
Simple
worry
bet.
about it. But yeah, we hoped that that would be the problem, but we knew that, yeah, there's no way you can't just run an app with thousands of merchants and just leave it. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. Why don't you want to, why did you never want to scale? Why did you want to put the framework in place of refining around less is more?
I guess a few reasons. So like, yeah, controlling our own destiny. So we kind of, if we're making the decisions, we've just got to deal with the three of us.
Hmm.
We kind of know, where we all stand. We work well together. Change it, like getting more people in changes the dynamic a lot.
Hmm.
There's complexities come with having a bigger team. I know that there'll be plenty of people listening who would completely disagree, and they'll be like, well, you should have scaled, you could have been this size or whatever. But yeah, kind of we just, and also the third thing as well, which we kind of felt was quite important, was lifestyle.
Hmm.
Like we didn't want to lose sight of why we work, and we wanted to get that balance right. I don't think any of us went into business thinking, right, we are going to make millions here, go for a huge exit, and then like live the life. It was more about like, let's do something we love, let's be paid well for it, but let's also like make sure we work to live rather than live to work. Like we
Hmm.
didn't want to get sucked into like huge, like long days, long weeks, like that kind of mentality. We had a different approach. Just like Steve, he loves playing tennis. He wants to play tennis a couple of times a week. Alex likes playing golf. Golf can take you out for the whole day if you're playing 18 holes. A couple of years ago, me and my wife had a child. I'd play a lot of golf, but I guess it was just, yeah, we wanted to get that balance right. And if you want those things, you can't really then have the other things. You can't have a big workforce and take in investment, because that just completely changes everything. So, that was the decision we made.
Yeah, no, you knew what you wanted in terms of defining importance, right? And you're looking at it as a trade-off. You know, if you get this, you have to essentially give up this. And these are the decisions in which we want to make and prioritize. And I think for folks listening, this is a very valuable conversation, because I'm sure there's a lot of folks that are literally living through this right now, and they're trying to make this decision, whether it's an active decision that they're in, and they're in that moment of inflection of, maybe do we go raise venture because we found something product market fit that could potentially support it, or folks just getting started and they're like, hey, what type of business do I want to build, and what type of optionality, and do I have to force function go into this lane, or is there multiple lanes? And what I heard you say is essentially building an ownable business. You're building something that is an asset and not necessarily a job. And if it is a job, is a job that you want to have,
Yeah.
not one that you hate having. And it's like a matter of work style balance and also lifestyle balance. So you want to have the fit that ultimately makes sense, which, yeah, I can appreciate. So when we got to this moment in time where the business reached this next level of inflection of, hey, this is maybe too big and we don't want to scale, so it's too big, so let's sail. Let's go to sale. You already knew that was going to be the moment, that was going to be a trigger. That's super cool. Let's talk about the actual process of going through it. So now we know we want to. Tell me about the actual decision moments. So this is 2021. It's 4 years into the build cycle. Started in 2017. It's 2021. Let's go through the actual, hey, we're going to get this thing ready to sell. What was it like getting exit ready? What was it like going through the process? What was the whole exit experience like for you guys?
Well, actually, funny thing was, we actually listed a different app for sale because we felt that was at that point. So, and I think it must have been the
What was that
first.
app?
It was called Happy Birthday Email, which we still have to this day, funnily enough. So we listed that for sale because we felt that needed it kind of was at that level. It was doing really well, but it was the type of app, or it is the type of app, which needs a lot of um, content marketing and
Active
creative
management.
marketing. Yeah. And it was just like it's actually a funny one, because it was actually an app a little bit out of our comfort zone. It wasn't. So capturing a date of birth, sending a birthday email, like, that's fine. But then the marketing of it was way more complicated for us, because it's a lot of benefit led marketing, whereas we've always been used to feature based. We solve this problem.
Mm,
We can do this. We know it's a problem. So it's like, birthday emails wasn't necessarily a problem based market. It's like, you could do this,
yeah.
whereas the other things were, this will solve that problem for you. So we listed that on a marketplace for sale, and we got approached we got a lot of inquiries, spoke to a lot of people. I didn't realize that I guess one lesson here was, what I do now especially is, you want to have a list of all of the common questions people ask. Just have them ready to hand over, because you get asked the same thing again and again. And the other thing, which I felt like I should have done earlier, because you have so many conversations, is that be a little bit abrupt, not rude, but abrupt and upfront to, this is the sort of asking price we want to sell this for.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to waste your time by giving you a lot of information, and I don't want to waste my own time if we're miles off any sort of agreement. So I didn't do that. So I spoke to so many people. But the benefit was, I guess, if a counter argument, that is, I eventually got speaking to a company called Shop Circle.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to their two founders, really nice guys. They were just launching Shop Circle at the time, looking at the Shopify ecosystem, and they wanted to buy their first app. So it was just on one of the introductory calls, we were chatting, and they asked a few questions about our other apps, and I was telling them about our tagging apps, and I think their ears pricked up a little bit there. So yeah, that was it. And they wanted to know a bit more, got a bit excited, and the conversation just kind of grew from there. So although I'd say both taggers were kind of at that level, they were like, we probably could have kept going with them for a little bit longer. but not a lot really. They were big apps with a lot of customers. And that was the other thing from a development point of view, they were taking up about 90% of any sort of development work we were doing. So
Mhm.
certainly from that point of view, they were at that level where we need to explore moving them on. We just caught us off guard, but in
So
a
you
nice
went to go list the happy birthday application, and so just for accurate naming, it's happy birthday, right?
yeah, happy birthday email.
Which is just like, yeah, very spot on name, but different type of
Yeah,
business.
you'd like
So
to think we haven't
you
got
got
much
a type
marketing
of
to do
business that's
there because it's
solving a
quite obvious.
problem, and then you got a problem. You're selling a benefit. So you're selling a painkiller versus a benefit solution, and you just felt like we're more in the painkiller model. That's what we know best, is just solving a problem and delivering a outstanding solution and supporting that. So from that reason, you were like, let me potentially carve this out and get to disposition with it. And you went through the listing process there for that reason. So that was the trigger event there. And in the experience, you learned a couple of things. You learned one, let's make sure we have a exit ready deal room, and let's make sure that all of the information that a potential buyer would or prospective buyer would need, especially in the way that removes us from having to be in the conversation, perhaps, so that we can then secondly put some accountability on the buyer and qualify these buyers early and often and kill it on the
Yeah.
vine fast, so that we can optimize the time and focus and energy that we're investing. Two really good lessons. But from the function of that journey, you ended up finding the actual buyer for our order tagger and customer tagger shop circle, and you're listing something else in the conversation. So essentially it was buy side demand of an active buyer in a conversation in a relationship that ended up triggering, hey, let's maybe carve out these other two deals, and maybe this is the better fit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess it was. It was. We kind of knew that the benefit of selling them would be we would have a bit more time back.
Capacity
Um,
90% freed up.
yeah, and so we weren't necessarily against it. We just weren't expecting it. But they were doing really well. We'd actually spent only about 2 years before that. We'd completely rebuilt them.
Were they pushing you? So like, who was driving the deal? Were they coming in with strong
They were.
demand saying, hey, we want to do this, let's, and they, because of that, they positioned really keen terms? Or take us through the actual experience and the decision function of, let's get this deal done. Was it just the offer was too good to say
Yeah, the
no to?
offer.
Or
Well, the thing was, we never, because we hadn't thought about it, we didn't know what we would be willing to accept. We didn't know what the value was as
how
such.
did you get to that sense? How did you get to a concept of price and terms?
We kind of knew other people in the industry who'd sold, and we kind of knew roughly people were selling for about 3 to 4 annual recurring revenue. So we know roughly what the value was.
Did you work with anybody? Did you have anybody coming in and working with you and advising you through the
No, no, we felt like we could handle it ourselves. I guess it was just I mean, we had legal representation, like to do the more formal stuff, but yeah, like negotiating, coming up with a price, rightly or wrongly, I don't know, but we kind of thought we we didn't
who
really have a
positioned
value.
first? Did you guys position first, or did Shop Circle position first? Who put out the first price?
I think they did. I think they did. And I think it was quite straightforward. I think it wasn't far off. We had like a chat internally, but like someone threw a number out there and then, what would you feel if this was the thing? And then you kind of go, well, he would say yes. So you kind of like, I don't know, you have to dangle a carrot in front of going, okay, put a number on a bit of paper and internally and go, well, how would you feel if this was the offer? And then from there, we kind of figured out, okay, that seems like a good price to sell at.
So they threw something out there, and then you and your partners essentially had this internal, like, yeah, that fits, that kind of feels okay. And then you got to the discussion through terms.
Yeah.
How did that feel, and how did that flow?
I think we all have had so many chats with buyers over the years that we were kind of like, let's just see how it goes, but we won't really believe it's going to happen until it's happened. So yeah, we kind of tried to just take it in our stride. There was the due diligence was split into three. It was financial, technical, and then business. So all of it was split into 3 separate calls, all needed 3 different types of documents, but quite straightforward. Mostly it was just down to conversations and then follow like supporting documents. But yeah, no, like it was like, considering personally, I kind of dealt with the initial calls and kind of saw it all through. It was my first experience of any sort of acquisition or sale, but it didn't kind of feel how I thought it might be. It wasn't all formal business language. It was all very relaxed, conversational. We just worked through all of the bits of information they needed. They were really nice guys. I still chat to them to this day. Like we really
That's
liked
always a
them.
good sign.
Yeah, yeah, and it was another reason why we wanted to sell. Like, and just to go back a few steps, so why again another reason why we liked being a 3 is because we sometimes I like to think between the 3 of us, our moral compass is like spot on. We try and do the right thing where we can, and maybe our business decisions don't make sense financially. Perhaps if we had investors, we would have to make decisions which we maybe don't believe in, but because we don't, we can make a lot of decisions based on maybe it's even an individual merchant's need. Maybe we're going above and beyond too far for someone that it doesn't make sense, or we could be building something which is actually not that helpful to most, but or we're just doing things because we think it's what like is the right thing to do and
Mhm.
it's helpful for the customers we've got. And we kind of even kept that trail of thought when we go to sell, was we didn't really, especially because we planned on carrying on operating, because we didn't want to sell to someone who was just gonna, I don't know, just turn it into a profit making machine. And all of the hard work we'd put in, all of the trust we'd built up from these customers who are using us, we would sell it on, and then
Yeah, they'd
they were like,
strip out customer support,
yeah, and it
they
kind of
change
didn't look good on
pricing.
us
Yeah.
really, because we just like, oh, we don't care now. So we did want it, and like we like looked fondly over those apps. We like worked so hard on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we want them to go in the right hands, and we did feel like that. So that whole process was nice. It was very conversational. The guys we worked with were really good, honest, friendly. We kind of knew what their plan was for them, and I know that they've stuck to it. They're doing really well, I believe, the apps. And
I love this because you've communicated something that I think captures our market that not everybody gets to appreciate because not everybody gets to experience, and you just kind of created an opportunity for folks to. Most folks bootstrapping, most folks building simple profitable businesses, most folks in our overall market and space do so for a very specific reason, and those reasons typically stem from self, and it stems from this concept of ownership and an owner's mentality and lifestyle and work style and the things that we discussed earlier, especially within the frameworks that you put for the business itself. Shared across the board. That is a very universal common language and mentality for sure. And then it carries through. And you shared how it carries through to the exit. But the thing that you also highlight is this kind of like moral ethical compass of just doing good business. And I think that that's something that also really resonates hard in our space. And there's a lot of folks that are now moving into it. I just think that that's something to highlight, to commend, and to also elevate and celebrate in the process too. What I want to get into is the actual scope of the deal getting done and what that experience was like for you and the team to not just finish it transactionally, but also emotionally, like how it actually felt when everything was completed. And then the post sale, what the experience was like now that it was done. What do we do next? Because I feel like that emotional journey is also very valuable for folks listening.
yeah, it was definitely something I wasn't really prepared for or thought much on, but it is a strange feeling. Yeah, like fundamentally, we were selling a software app which made us recurring revenue. So on that basic level, we went from a certain level of revenue here to almost back to the drawing board level. So that's a shock to the system. Then you've also got like the brain space you don't realize it occupies, in that you think about the certain things every day. You know that there's problems to solve, there's things you've got to do, and it takes a while to realize actually they're not for you to solve anymore. So you've got like this not empty feeling, but you've got to kind of recalibrate and like refocus, which took quite a long time.
Do you feel like that was a sense of identity too? Do you feel like it was almost
Yeah,
a sense of
yeah.
self, like purpose?
Yeah, and we felt. I mean, like we sold something a couple of years ago, and it was a piece of software. It was called Sassy, and it was free. We built a free community tool called Sassy, and what we do is
That's
it
a
was
good
free.
brand.
Yeah, it was great. It was like our baby. We loved it, but it was free. We didn't make us any money. We weren't really. Never really came up with a way to keep it. But we eventually we swapped it for something.
Hmm, that's
That
cool.
tool was
Like an
it was
asset swap?
yeah, but it was a tool which allowed other app developers to track their position on the app listing. Everyone loved Sassy. We loved that we were the builders behind it, and it was like our baby. It was our community tool. Everything was done for free, and then that was like, even though we'd experienced the kind of the loss of something you've spent years building with the taggers, it was just, you just feel it again. We felt it again with that, and I just remember it because it's more recent. Um, in that it is an identity thing. Like, that was, the taggers were our identity. We go to conferences, and when we meet people, we would like tend to focus on our most popular app. Like, we're the developers of this app. We're UnionWorks, we built the taggers, or we're UnionWorks, we built Sassy. You must use Sassy. And then you kind of, once that's gone, you're like, what are we now then? UnionWorks, what we doing next?
Hmm.
So there was a bit of that. And then also the other thing, it was like for us, um, was maybe, I guess it was like doubting ourselves that we've just done what we set out to do with the taggers, everything exactly as we planned. Was it a one off? Are we going to be able to do it again? Because we just
Mm.
dropped significantly in our monthly recurring revenue. Like, I know we've exited, we've sold, so we've got some money there, but we still had ideas and things we wanted to do. And you have a bit of a crisis, like, right, are we going to be able to actually get to this point again?
Hmm. Very real.
Was
Yeah.
it a one-off? Like, and you
Yeah. Imposter
doubt
syndrome.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's it is a strange feeling. I
I love
can't
the fact
remember.
that you guys you went back to your roots. So you started with this simple bet thesis of the type of business in which you wanted to build, then summited the top and you got to the liquidity and the exit, validating the thesis, and then that imposter syndrome kicks in and it's like, let's do it again. And that is probably the hardest part. But you've sunk into, like, you like exit 1 through exit 3 essentially. Like, you want to build the business to the point where systems matter, but you don't want to get to the point where exit 4, you're putting an operator or somebody else in and you're running it as like a holdco passive asset to a certain extent. You know that at that point you want to sell it off. So you've specialized in literally like ideation to system building of a business where there's product market fit, there's customers, happy paying customers, most importantly, which seems to
Yeah,
be the flywheel effect of it all. And you have done it again, and you're doing it again. So you are currently working on, 7 applications currently in the overall portfolio of UnionWorks, and Grapevine being the current flagship. Realistically, is that?
yeah. So it kind of, we've taken so much of the learnings we did over those early years with Grapevine. So it's been the same. Like, we've stuck to the basics as much as possible.
Mhm.
So yeah, but it's a survey app, allows you to do post-purchase and on-site surveys. It's quite different. There is pain points there, but there is also benefit-led stuff. So we've had to
Pain point being
learn.
the logistics of doing it
Yeah, like the bit. Yeah, the
and the benefit
kind
of,
of.
if
I
you
guess so.
get it,
There
you
is
can
like,
use it.
yeah, well, there is pain points in that sometimes. The most common use case is like, how did you hear about us? So some brands, the pain point is they just don't know where their customers are coming from because they
Mhm.
can't reliably use the tracking data that's coming in. So that's a pain point. But then there's benefits of like running other types of servers and capturing insights. So, but
Mhm.
I think we're better at understanding what it is we need to do to communicate those things. So we're certainly significantly more experienced in that area. But our model hasn't changed at all. The three of us will sit down every week and we'll look at particular support tickets, we'll answer them, we'll do the same things, we'll build the feature that one person's asked for, in the hope that in next year we'll look back and go, oh, actually, a lot of people are now using that. So the principles haven't changed. We've still got the same problem. So there's four of us. Well, there's four of us now. So Steve's brother Stu, he helps on our support desk. When I say helps, he runs our support desk, I should
Steve's
say.
brothers too.
Yeah, Steve and Stu. So they'll be the first people you'd speak to if you were to install. And what was it? Where was I going
What's
with
the
that?
work style balance like? So let's talk about it today. So it's been almost a decade of operating history at this point.
Yeah.
What does it look like in terms of a given week? Have you gotten the business to the point where you're at that steady state cadence of X number hours a day, and folks take ownership of very specific targets? Or
I think it hasn't changed really. I think everything's still exactly the same. I don't think we work any differently now than we did when we first started. So we all get excited about and like have it might be working like sprints. So in one particular week we might all work significantly more because we're about to launch something
Mhm.
or trying to solve something, and then it might go a little bit quiet. But the amount of work, the speed of work, and like our attitude has not changed at all, really. It's exactly the same. I think we probably tried different attitudes and mindsets because we're trying to replicate what we did before. We've gone down the routes of like spending money on a lot of like marketing things, getting people like freelancers in to help. And we tried to do all of these different things that we didn't do the first time. And like, we're probably now back to realizing actually just stick to what we did do the first time. So we're
back to
kind of
basics. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's much better. We think we're all happier and we're working towards the like similar trajectory as the other apps. So yeah, like I think that probably is kind of linked to the identity crisis mentioned and like the doubt in that. Well, you have to
Well,
do
it's a
things.
learning. You're going through, and I mean, you had the opportunity to learn one thing that worked. It worked. That then gave you the freedom to decide to maybe try different things. And it's just a function of growth, and it's a function of exploring. It's a function of business itself. And you're testing things out, making all these simple bets, decide, and then eventually you just realize like this is what works. This is
Yeah,
let's do what functionally is the thing that got us here and gets us our check boxes, which is building an honorable business that gives us work style balance and lifestyle balance and the profit in the pocket at the end of the day that supports all of it while we're supporting our customers, happy paying customers and market. What's the future look like? So as we're wrapping up here, if you were to paint the picture of Union Works and where we're trending towards and things that maybe, folks listening right now, if, you just provided a ton of value for them, if they could maybe provide a little bit of value for you, what does that look like?
I think it's different. I definitely think it's not the next 5 years won't look like the previous 5 years for us. I think the world is different. The notion of selling and the way we sold before probably won't happen again. So we're going to have to, we know we're going to have to adapt. So we know that, like, I think we're trying to be open minded about the future, which is um, we kind of come to terms with in the last year. So in the answer to the questions, I think we all kind of say we don't really know or we're not too worried about what the future looks like. I think we're just going to concentrate on the things we can control and just wait and see what pops up and what might happen in the future. But I do think with what we're working on now, our attitude is a little bit different. I think we want to do stuff with our apps for a little bit longer than we did before. So maybe we'll dip our toe into some uncomfortable situations and zones in the future. Who knows? We might have a team of 10 and 5 investors. I don't know, but
Yeah, well,
we'll
time will
try and
tell
remain
for
open.
sure. I think there's
Yeah.
probably models you could pursue in terms of like almost like micro search funder type of, operator led deals and positioning it more of a HOCO, more of a continuous capital structure. That's starting to become a little bit more popular. I feel like you have a good problem to solve there. And
Yeah.
you've
Certainly going to be
you've
fun.
put yourselves in a position where inevitably, yeah, because the market is definitely changing for sure. For folks listening, if they could go and get in touch with you or take action right now, what would be the best place? Where would you want to send?
Well, they can either go to the Grapevine Surveys website or they could just message me on LinkedIn. I'm often on there, so you can find me on LinkedIn, drop me a message. I'm always happy to chat. Yeah, like quite happy to get on calls and just have like-minded conversations with people and do my own learning as and listening as much as I do talking.
I love it. This has been a great conversation. A lot of lived, learned lessons shared, which again are the most valuable and most expensive lessons to ever get. We appreciate you for taking the time, investing the time to share with our audience today. Till next time, trust the process, commit to the journey. Sam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks.